How can you do this to Happiness? She is just a child, your sister's child. You are supposed to protect her. This is wrong.
Do not say a word to anybody. Think about your children.
They say blood is thicker than water. But what happens when blood becomes poison? What happens when the hands meant to protect you are the same hands that destroy you? Tonight, I will tell you the story of Happiness, a girl whose name promised light, but whose life was swallowed by darkness. A girl whose name was brighter than her destiny. A girl who loved school more than food. A girl who trusted family and paid with her life. Stay with me, because this is not just a story. This is justice for Happiness. In a remote, struggling community on the outskirts of Lagos, where the roads were more sand than tar, and the houses leaned like tired old men, lived a woman named Mama Ijiro. She had 3 daughters, no husband, no stable income, only determination. The last-born was different. Her name was Happiness. She was small for her age, but her eyes carried questions bigger than the sky. While other children ran barefoot chasing tires, Happiness would sit under the mango tree with torn newspapers, tracing letters with her fingers. She loved education, but love does not pay school fees. Many nights, the family ate only gari soaked in water. Some nights, not even that. Mama Ejiro would watch her youngest daughter recite multiplication tables she learned from listening outside classroom windows. And her heart would break, because brilliance was growing in darkness. One evening, Mama Ejiro received a call. Her elder brother, Uncle Benson, a wealthy businessman in Lagos. He had heard about their struggles. "I am her uncle," he said. "Send the girl to me. I will sponsor her education. She will live well." It felt like a miracle, a breakthrough, a prayer answered. Happiness cried tears of joy. She packed her few clothes in a small nylon bag. She hugged her sisters. She promised to become a doctor, and so she left. She didn't know she was walking into a house with beautiful walls and rotten foundations. Uncle Benson's house was large, painted cream and gold. It had tiled floors that reflected your face. To Happiness, it looked like heaven. Her aunt smiled warmly. Her cousins looked polished and well-fed. The first week felt like a dream. New clothes, proper meals, school registration. Happiness wrote her mother letters filled with excitement. "I will make you proud, Mama." But something else was watching. Something patient. Something evil hiding behind respectability. It started subtly. Uncle Benson would call her into his study. He would ask about school, praise her intelligence, then linger too long. Happiness felt uncomfortable but confused. This was her uncle, the man saving her future. One night, when the generator hummed and the house was asleep, he knocked on her door. That night changed everything. We will not describe what happened, but when morning came, Happiness was not the same child. Her laughter faded. Her appetite disappeared. Her eyes stopped shining. She tried to avoid him, but he was the head of the house. He controlled everything. He whispered threats. "If you tell anyone, your mother will suffer. Your schooling will end." Fear is powerful when you're a child. And so she stayed silent. The abuse continued. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. Her grades began to drop. Teachers asked questions. She forced smiles. Her aunt began to suspect, but suspicion is different from courage. One afternoon, her aunt walked in unexpectedly. She saw enough. Not everything, but enough. The house froze in silence. Uncle Benson denied nothing. He only said one sentence. "Think about your children." And just like that, the aunt chose silence. She chose her comfort. She chose her marriage over a child, over Happiness. That day, Happiness realized something worse than pain. She was alone. Months passed. Happiness became withdrawn. She developed constant illnesses, nightmares, fever, weakness. Her mother called often, but the aunt answered, "She is fine, just adjusting." But she was not fine. The human body can only endure so much trauma. The human heart even less. One evening, she fainted in school. She was rushed to a local clinic, and that was when the truth began to crack open. Doctors suspected severe internal injuries, and prolonged trauma. Whispers spread, questions rose. Mama Ejiro was finally called. When she arrived and saw her daughter on that hospital bed, thin, fragile, broken, she screamed. Happiness held her mother's hand weakly, and with the last strength in her voice, she said, "Mama, I wanted to be a doctor." Those were her final clear words. Days later, Happiness died, not from illness, not from poverty, but from betrayal. The community erupted. Rumors turned into accusations. But Uncle Benson was powerful, connected, respected. The aunt denied everything. There was no immediate justice, only a small coffin, and a mother burying her child.
This is not just a story. It is a warning. Evil does not always look like a stranger in the dark. Sometimes it wears family names. Sometimes it lives in big houses. Silence protects the abuser, not the child. When we choose reputation over truth, we become accomplices. A child's voice is sacred, and when a child speaks or shows signs of pain, we must listen, because justice delayed can become justice buried. But this is not the end. Because death has a way of awakening what silence tried to bury. A nurse who saw too much, a teacher who remembered the bruises, a neighbor who heard cries in the night, and a mother who refused to let her daughter become another forgotten name. The fight for justice begins. Will power silence the truth, or will happiness finally be heard? Stay with me, because the truth will reveal what happened behind closed doors and whether justice can rise from tragedy. They buried her in a coffin too small for her dreams. Happiness, the girl who wanted to become a doctor, the girl who trusted her uncle, the girl whose own aunt chose silence. But sometimes, when injustice is buried, it does not stay buried. It grows teeth, and in the dusty outskirts of Lagos, whispers began to rise this time. Silence will be challenged. Stay with me, because what happened next shook even the powerful. Mama Ejiro did not cry the way people expected. After the burial, when relatives tried to console her with empty words, "It is God's will," she stood still. Her tears had dried into something harder, rage. She replayed every phone call, every time her daughter said, "I am fine, Mama." Every time the aunt reassured her, she knew now that something had been wrong, and she would not let it end in silence. In Nigeria, people fear powerful men, but a grieving mother, she fears nothing. At the small clinic where Happiness had been admitted, there was a nurse named Amaka. She had seen too much. She had noticed the injuries, the pattern, the fear in the girl's eyes. When Happiness died, Amaka couldn't sleep. Her conscience burned. She remembered how the uncle had arrived at the hospital, calm, controlled, already speaking to someone on the phone. Important people, influential voices. That was when Amaka understood. This would be covered up, unless someone spoke. And so she did something dangerous. She contacted Mama Ejiro. The meeting happened quietly, under a mango tree near the old church in the settlement. Amaka told her everything she suspected. The repeated trauma, the physical evidence of prolonged abuse, the fear that had been obvious in Happiness' body. Mama Ejiro did not scream. She did not faint. She whispered one sentence. "He killed my child." And in that moment, the fight began. In today's Nigeria, secrets rarely stay hidden. A young blogger, Tunde, who often reported on injustice cases, caught wind of the story through a teacher from Happiness School. The teacher remembered how the girl's grades dropped, how she flinched when older men walked by, how she once wrote an essay about a house that looks safe but is not. The blog post went live. Wealthy Lagos businessman accused in niece's death. At first, it was small. Then it spread. Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp groups. The hashtag began. Hashtag Justice for Happiness. Uncle Benson was not a small man. He had contracts, political ties, friends in high places. He called a press conference. He denied everything. He called the accusations fabricated by jealous relatives. His wife stood beside him, silent, expressionless, and when a reporter asked her directly, "Did you ever suspect anything?" She said, "My husband is a good man." That single sentence broke something inside the community, because many knew she had seen. But fear is heavy, and comfort is addictive. Mama Ejiro filed a case. It was not easy. Lawyers demanded money she didn't have, but the public pressure was growing. Women's groups began to rally. Church organizations spoke out. Activists referenced past tragedies, like the real-life case of Ochanya Ogbanje, a young girl whose story had once shaken the nation. History was repeating itself, and Nigerians were tired. The courtroom sessions were tense. The nurse testified. The teacher testified. Medical reports were presented. The defense tried to discredit everyone. They painted Mama Ejiro as desperate for money. They questioned the nurse's professionalism. They claimed there was no direct evidence, because abuse behind closed doors often leaves no witnesses, only victims, and sometimes no living victim at all.
The turning point came unexpectedly. One evening, as the trial dragged on, Uncle Benson's wife overheard her own daughter crying in her room. A nightmare. The child whispered, "Daddy scares me." It was like lightning splitting the sky. Suddenly, the silence she had protected felt poisonous. She remembered the day she walked into that room and saw enough. She remembered choosing comfort over courage, and she realized if she stayed silent again, another child could suffer. The next court session, she asked to speak. Gasps filled the room. Her voice trembled. "I knew something was wrong," she confessed. "I chose not to see it clearly, and that choice destroyed a child." The courtroom froze. Uncle Benson stared at her like she had betrayed him, but she whispered back, "No, you betrayed us all." The confession changed everything. Combined with medical evidence and testimonies, the case could no longer be dismissed as rumor. After months of delay tactics and tension, the judge delivered the verdict, guilty. The sentence was heavy: prison, public disgrace, financial restitution. The once respected businessman was led away in handcuffs, but justice felt bittersweet, because happiness was still gone. The story did not end in the courtroom. The hashtag grew into a movement. Child protection awareness campaigns began in schools. Community meetings were held about safeguarding children, even within families. Mama Ejiro started a small foundation in her daughter's name, the Happiness Initiative. Its mission: listen to children, believe them, protect them. The aunt, now separated from her husband, lived with regret. She had wealth once. Now she had conscience, and sometimes that is heavier. This story is painful, but it carries truth. Evil does not survive because it is strong. It survives because people stay silent. When we protect reputation over righteousness, we become part of the crime. No child should suffer because adults fear scandal. No family name is more important than a child's life. And if you ever notice signs, fear, withdrawal, sudden illness, do not ignore them. Listen, speak, act, because justice for one child can protect many more. But even now, in many homes across Nigeria, there are children like Happiness, smiling outside, suffering inside. Will we wait for another coffin before we act? Or will we break the silence today? If this story moved you, share it, speak about it, protect a child, and remember her name, Happiness.